And I see some familiar names, so it's great to see folks who supported the program during our campaign here. So I see Harry Dunbar, welcome. Obviously, Councilwoman Jung, hello. See. Doesn't look like anyone. We'd love to, or maybe I can't see it on your end, on our end, but we'd love to know where you're from in the county. So please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. If you're a member of the press, please also let us know. Hi, Karen, welcome, welcome. Hello, I see more folks beginning to join us. Please, in the meantime, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. We'd love to know where you're from in the county. And if you're not from HOCO and you're just interested in learning about the program, please also let us know what jurisdiction you're in. Welcome, Beth and Ben and Safa. Oh, yes. Oh, hello, Safa. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that County Executive Ball was unable to join us, but it's great that he was able to send representatives from his office. So thank you. Welcome, Larry. How are you? We're just gonna give 2 to 3 more minutes to see if other folks join. I know that a lot of people were emailing. We'll be sending the recording for those who may have contacted you as well. Hi, Byron, welcome. Hi, Councilwoman. And I see some folks joining by phone. Welcome, welcome. If you're joining by phone, hopefully you can hear. And we will send the recording so that you can view the slides afterwards. Welcome, welcome for folks who are just joining. And apologies, I should have put on some music for us, but I forgot to bring some, I forgot to share sound and pick a soundtrack, but we'll be getting started soon. In the meantime, I hope you all, checked out the data that just came out from the census that'll be used for redistricting. We've seen some growth in Howard County. So after the event, I'd take some time to look through that data as well, since it's going to impact your local redistricting too. So I think if my speakers are ready, I think we're just going to go ahead and get started. I know that it's a busy and hot day, and we don't want to hold folks on for too long. So welcome and thank you so much for taking time out today to join us. I know that you could be doing so many other things, and you've come out to learn about the people-powered Howard County Citizens Election Fund. So it's just exciting to see that folks are interested in learning more and that candidates are beginning to opt in. We really wanted to pull together today's event because we know that as more counties, begin to adopt and implement these programs, there's a learning curve when you're using it for the first time. And we wanted to, just ensure that not only candidates and their staffers, but members of the public who maybe supported the program, the ballot measure, and the process leading up to 2021, that you all understand how it works, and that we took some time to answer some of your questions. Now, for those who just are, well, I have not introduced myself, so my name is Joanne Antoine. I'm Executive Director of Common Cause Maryland. And for those who are unfamiliar with the organization, we are a nonpartisan grassroots organization that's been working in Maryland for just about 50 years now, working to help strengthen and build a more inclusive democracy here in the state. So we work on a number of good governance reforms, and we do that through, grassroots mobilization, direct lobbying, and more importantly, public education. And one of our core issue areas is campaign finance reform. Now, we work with a larger coalition that some of you might be familiar with that is called Fair Elections Maryland. Now, the coalition, I can't even think of the number, but it is a pretty large coalition. It's made up of state and national organizations. But, as we adopt these programs at the local level, we also have local partners that are part of these efforts as well. And as a coalition, we've been working to establish these small donor public financing programs at the local level to help build momentum at the state level. Now, if you are someone who is ever considered a run for office, or someone in your community who is a great leader, who maybe just, for whatever reason hasn't taken the leap and decided to run, there's a good chance that one of the fears or one of the boundaries there is the lack of access to funding, and what public financing does is it provides another mechanism that is powered by the people you seek to represent, that allows for viable candidates to run, based off of the strength of the people they're seeking to represent. So I want to make sure I'm not rambling, but, Maryland is regarded as one of the leading states on small donor public financing. Even when we're looking at national efforts right now around For the People Act, Congressman Sarbanes a lot of times is pointing back to the progress that has been made here in the state. And I wanted, before we go into Howard County, I wanted to just kind of give you a sense of the landscape and how much we've managed to accomplish just over the last few years. Just over the last few years. So Montgomery County, really was the tipping point for us after the legislature took action in 2013. And Montgomery County established a program in 2014 and used it for the first time in 2018. Now, Howard County has been instrumental in the campaign because Howard County was the first in the state, and I believe the first in the nation to establish a program like this following the Citizens United decision, through a charter amendment, right? So now Howard County got a lot of national attention, and folks are paying close attention to the program as it's being used. And since Howard County, we've established programs in Prince George's County, Baltimore City, and Baltimore County this past November, voters approved a charter amendment, and the jurisdiction is in the process of introducing a bill. Now, one piece I did forget to flag on here is that there is a statewide program. It's called the Fair Campaign Financing Fund, and Governor Hogan actually used the program when first running for office, and he credits the program largely, for his victory. This past session, we actually got a major win, which was unexpected, and we have to give a special thank you to Jared for all of his work there. We've actually modernized and funded the Fair Campaign Financing Fund. Modernizing it, meaning that we've made it similar to the program here in Howard County, where it's a tiered match system where matches are provided to for dollars coming from residents here in the state. And more importantly, funding is available moving forward. So if you know someone who is considering a run for governor, you should flag for them that there is a Fair Campaign Financing Fund and that there's up to $3 million available per election right now. Now, I know you're like, why talk about the national movement? But it is important, right? Howard County, even though you're using your program for the first time, the victory that in Howard County really has helped, propel the movement, throughout the state, and it's helping with national efforts. And I just wanted to give a quick overview. If you visit the Howard County Commission website, it does a great job of laying out the timeline. I think what's critical to remember here is that this program was not established by Common Cause or by the Fair Elections Maryland Coalition. It was powered by the people of Howard County. We came in with activists who were already on the ground leading efforts, who knew what they wanted the program to look like. And, from the ballot measure until now, really have been continuing to champion and watchdog the process. So again, we passed the charter amendment or voters approved the charter amendment in 2016, bill passed in 2017. We overrode that veto. And, since then, the commission and the commission has been working to ensure the program is funded along with the county, and residents have been working to fund the program through contributions of their own. So I don't want to keep rambling. You all did not come to see me this evening, but I wanted to make sure for those who are joining for the first time and hearing about the program for the first time, that you understand that this was something that was supported by the people of Howard County, that there are a number of organizations that endorse this effort, and that even though there's some confusion around how it works, which isn't surprising, it's the first time, that over time, similar to here in Montgomery County, you will begin to see the positive impacts that this will have, right? And some examples being, outside of average everyday people being able to run, we'll get to see, candidates who are spending more time talking to voters and listening to you, right? Instead of hosting big fundraisers and spending their days dialing for dollars. And over time, what you'll see is leaders that are more reflective of the people and the needs in the county. And obviously, you all are helping in efforts to limit the amount of special interest money that is coming in. So I want to pause there, and I'm actually going to introduce our first speaker, who is Sue Geckle, chair of the Citizens Election Fund Commission. And before Sue comes on, I did also want to acknowledge that we have, Diane Zagorski, who works in the Department of Finance within the county, who is the designee, who's been working with Sue and the commission to, put together these presentations and oversee the program. And as well as Brenna, and I just realized Doug Miller is on, so I did not see you, Doug, but Doug is the vice chair of the commission as well. So I will pass it to both Doug and Sue.
Thank you, Joanne. Good evening and welcome. It's great to see people's names flashing up. So hello, everyone. I am the chair, as Joanne said, of the Howard County Citizens Election Fund Commission. And tonight, I want to just provide a brief introduction to the commission, what our role is, what we have been doing over the past 2+ years, what funds are available, and how many candidates have signed up so far. The commission is set up to have 7 members. We currently have 1 vacancy, so there are six members. Myself, Doug Miller, who is on the call here, he is the vice chair. And then we also have Gina Rodriguez Pencueva, Jennifer Bevan Dangle, Wendy Slaughter, and David Loeffler. Dr. Lillian Holmes, who is also on the call, had to resign because she took a position with the Central Committee in Howard County. We are also very ably assisted by members of Howard County government. You've already met Diane. She is the designee for the commission. She works in the Department of Finance, and she is the Bureau Chief of Tax Revenue. We also have Brenna Puente Pinos, who is here as well, and I did not put her on the slide, and I apologize, Brenna. She is the Bureau Chief also with the Department of Finance. And then we have Kristen Perry, Deputy County Solicitor in the Office of Law, and Amanda Myhill, who was the Assistant County Solicitor. And they have been instrumental for us moving forward. And we have really, we hit the jackpot with them on our commission. So our role, our primary responsibility is to estimate the total amount of money needed for the full four-year election cycle, and to recommend amounts to be included in the budget for each fiscal year. Since this was the first time the fund is being utilized, we sought input from Montgomery County Public Election Fund Commission, Common Cause, and other sources to help us come up with this estimate. Another of our responsibilities, as stated in the law, is to administer the program. At the beginning of this, we were not sure exactly what that meant, but learned pretty quickly that it meant we had to build everything. I remember Jared was at our second meeting and he was like, you know what this all means, don't you? And you had 7 sets of eyes looking like we were the deers in the headlight because we had no idea what this meant. Luckily, we were not the first, and we did have Montgomery County's public financing to use as a blueprint. So we've spent a lot of the last 2 years writing the summary guide, the frequently asked questions, the rules of procedure, and the orientation training video. Going forward, we will be spending more time refining these documents, producing more training, and handling anything that comes up. We're hoping that this will not involve dealing with too many complaints. We are required by law to meet every 90 days in the 12 months preceding the primary election and twice a year otherwise. We have on average been meeting 3 or 4 times a year. So we've upped our times that we get together. Our next meeting is Tuesday, September 7th at 6 p.m. It's a virtual meeting. You can join using the information on the slide. It's also on the Citizens Election Fund Commission website, which I will provide the address for on a later slide. As I mentioned earlier, the commission is assisted by the Howard County, some Howard County employees. Their role is to work with the State Board of Election to deposit funds into qualified candidates' public election fund account when directed to by the State Board of Election. I knew I was going to do that. To provide information to candidates and the public, and to provide administrative support to the commission. Any questions about the program should be directed to the Department of Finance's designee, Diane Zagorski. Her number and commission email address are posted at the top of our website. The county website was recently updated, and the Citizens Election Fund page is much improved and more user-friendly. It has tons of information on it. They've done an excellent job, and I highly recommend going to take a look. Resources for the program can be found here, as well as meeting agendas, meeting minutes, when our next meeting will be. There's a donate button and contact information. We have the address listed on the screen. So funding, this is what you want to know, I'm sure. The commission estimated that we would need $1.9 million to fully fund the program. $1.25 million is currently available, and we will be recommending that the remaining $650,000 be included in the FY23 budget. It's important to note that money not spent from the fiscal year will remain in the program and will carry from year to year. The public is also able to donate to the fund by checking a box on the water bill or donating on the website. So far, donations have totaled almost $400. So you can include that $400 in the 1.25 million. So far, we have 2 candidates running for county council filed to participate in the fund, Christiana Rigby and Deb Young. Both are running for re-election. There are extra steps and filing requirements for the candidates, which you'll learn about in the next presentation. So the commission is very appreciative that you have chosen to run a people-powered campaign and are forgoing contributions from big money donors. You're going to be our guinea pigs, and we do appreciate it. If there are any questions about the commission, please type them in the chat and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. I thank you for attending the training and hope you have a better idea of what the commission is all about. We're really excited to get it off the ground, and we know it's going to be a great success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sue. I did want to make sure before we pass it to Jared, I did want to make sure I provided time for both Doug and Diane, if you wanted to just make any remarks, or Doug, if there's anything that you want to highlight as a commissioner as well, and as someone who supported, moving forward with establishing this program.
I'm just really here to hold Sue's coat. I thank you for the opportunity, but she's handling things. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to need to skip out of here very soon. So
Thank you so much,
thanks for having this. And yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
And Diane.
I think Sue did an excellent job at giving an overview, and just want to say very, very excited to get this program up and running. We have 2 candidates that have already filed their notice of intent, so looking forward to seeing how this unfolds in the upcoming months. Any questions? I am available.
Thank you, thank you. And before we pass it to Jared, again, if you, during the presentation, if you have any questions, please feel free to use it, include it in the Q&A. We're gonna do our best to get to all of them before we wrap up. And if possible, we're not gonna be speaking specifically to a specific candidate. So we're trying to answer information more broadly and provide an overview. So please just keep that in mind as you're sharing, asking questions. So I am going to pass it on to Jared DeMarinis, who is our ally in working for these fair elections programs for the State Board of Elections. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you, Joanne. I just want to say to Sue, you do have a great team there working with Diane and Bree and also Amanda. It's really good working with them and collaborative efforts. And, we try to ensure that how successful this program will be, because you need to have that cooperation and a little bit of excitement of any sort of new program that's going to have its, as things move along here. You don't think of everything when you pass a bill or the regulations, or there's always going to be some sort of new thing here, and it's a good solid team to work through all our issues and come up to make this program very successful. So I just wanted to thank them as well. I guess we can start with the overview of the program here, which is a voluntary, first and foremost here, just like in Montgomery County and any sort of public financing program, it is always a voluntary program because you come into the program here seeking public funds. There's going to be certain restrictions, which we will talk about later on in the presentation here, that the candidate will abide by. And that's why it's a voluntary program. And this program here is, basically a tiered approach to make small donors for the financing of county exec and county council candidates. This has been dictated. Let me just explain too a little bit about the program in and of itself here. It was a state law that was initially passed that allowed the counties to have the ability to fund and create these programs. So the state basically put the parameters as to some of the offices and some of what can transpire. But then a lot of the other, I would say the meat of the laws are at the county level, and the county gets to kind of craft it for their individual needs at that level. So it's a give and take between the state and the county a little bit here. But the state law only allows it for county executive and county council candidates, which is, just to let you know, it doesn't apply to all county offices. So when you get in there, just like any other candidate that is filing, everything goes through the MD-CRIS, which is the Maryland Reporting Information System. Non-public finance candidates have to use this. Public financing candidates will have to use this to register your committee and to file all your campaign finance reports. This is also the site for where people can view the reports as well, which you see the second big dial there, which is disclosure on the button there. That's where you would go as a public seeking the candidate's name, and then you can see all the reports and all the reports that they filed and any of their committee registration pages as well. So right now, go back one there. The eligible offices, you have the 1 county exec and the 5 district county council members. So that's the eligible offices for this program. This is just kind of a little bit of a calendar here that will go into it between the distribution period, the qualifying period, and what are some of the key dates here. Right now, for the 2022 election cycle, we are basically active. A candidate can now file the notice of intent to join the program, and they can also, if they qualify, they can seek distribution from the county council. From the county government here. So this is kind of like the deadlines here. The biggest one right now, the next one that's upcoming is the last Tuesday before the primary, which is the notice to file your certificate of candidacy. With that, that's also the last day you can open up a candidate committee and file a notice of intent to join the program here. After that, then you have 45 days before the election is when the qualifying period ends for the primary. So you have basically until May 14th to qualify, to get the threshold amounts. But that's not when you can still seek money afterwards, but that's the last time you can qualify. I think we can go to the next slide here. So participation in the program is real simple. You have to go on to the MD-CRIS website, and you have to basically form a publicly financed committee. Now, this is separate and distinct from the candidate committee. So you have to go in there, and because there's more forms for you to file, such as the notice of intent to participate. This notice of intent basically says that the candidate and the responsible officers agree to raising the contributions in accordance with state and county law and are subject to all the restrictions that apply to the funds afterwards there. And that they're just aware of if violations would occur, it's a Class A civil violation of Howard County, and that they may be responsible for some civil penalties at the state level as well. So this can all be done electronically. You can go to the next slide. The notice of intent, the statement of organization, and the appointment of the chair and treasurer, this is all done through MD-CRIS electronically, and their signatures are also done electronically as well. So what you need in order to sign up as a candidate, chair, and treasurer, you need to have your driver's license number, your voter ID, or your last 4 digits of your social security number, because you have to be a registered voter in the state of Maryland. So we then verify that against our voter registration database to see, but basically then you'll receive emails and move forward with it. Once approved, you get like I said, an email sent to all of you. The email will be sent within 24 hours of approval. Usually it's instantaneous, but I always like to give you like 24 hours. If you don't receive that email, you need to check your junk or your spam account, and then make us a safe person there. Once you get those emails and you have accepted those roles, a temporary password allowing you to log into MD Chris then is given to you. Each member then has a unique password. We do not have your passwords. We have that button called trouble logging in there with the big red arrow there. And that basically helps you to file. Like, again, this all has to be done before February 22nd, 2020. It can be done at any time. It can be done today, but the last day is February 22nd. This one here basically is just once you're in the system, you can change, if you need to change any of your information, you can do that inside because you have a whole bunch of features inside MD Chris here, which is, your registration information. So if you need to change your chair or treasurer, it can all be done through MD Chris here, just like any other political committee. So there's a lot of features there. The one important thing too, which is that at the end of all this stuff, a lot of people type in all the information and then they think that it's saved, or they click it and it falls back into the grid. You have to scroll all the way down to say, I certify that I've changed this, and it's true. And you hit the submit button there. Otherwise, it would not be saved. So that's just kind of like if you're in the system, just kind of, you have to make sure it gets submit. And then it generates a new statement of organization for the committee to see. If it doesn't do that, then it didn't take. Publicly financed accounts, just like any other political committee, must have a bank account. But this bank account must be for the exclusive use of a publicly financed committee. This one will receive all the deposits and make disbursements. And it has to be associated just only with the public campaign account. Any other bank accounts associated with a campaign or a candidate will not be recognized for this election and must either be closed or be deemed inactive during the period that the candidate is seeking public funds. And this is just because as the first go or the first iteration of the election, you have people that want to participate, but are currently, we're using the old system and having campaigns and having funds on there. So this doesn't preclude you, if you have an old account, from trying to use the program. Basically, we just say that account either you have to get it closed and file a final report, or if you don't want to do that right now, we'll just make it inactive and you cannot move or take any of the funds out of it. But we have a little bit more. We can explain that when I get to the miscellaneous sections. The qualifying period for a certified candidate begins January 1st following the primary election and then ends 45 calendar days prior to the primary election of the candidate. So basically, it's the start of an election cycle, which in this case is January 1st, 2019, and goes all the way through May 14th, 2022. So on January 1st, 2019, you could have opened up a publicly financed account and started seeking contributions. The difference is this is the qualification period. So this is the one how you get to that minimum threshold. It does not mean that we will start making disbursements. Disbursements only occur 1 year prior to the election. In this case, it was June of 21. So we're both in the qualification period and the disbursement period. So as soon as you hit qualifying, you can then seek disbursements. So qualifying contributions is across the board. It has to be at least $5 and no more than $250. Contributions must be from a county resident, and contributions must be made during the qualifying period. So basically here, for the county exec, you need 500 qualifying contributions for a total of $40,000 in order to meet the qualifications. For county council, it's 125 qualifying contributions for $10,000. And I just want to make here, this is contributors. So it's not just qualifying contributions. So I couldn't necessarily give $5, 15 times and count it towards my 125. It would only count as one contribution, as one contributor for the 125. So it's important. It's not necessarily contributions there. So it's not, you don't have to seek 125, $250 contributions there. Most people get a mix of things there, but these are just kind of the threshold. I believe the average, I forgot, was like $80 or so, or something to that effect, if you times did exactly on that front there. Important is that in-kind contributions do not qualify as a qualifying contribution. So they must be, and that's important because, so that means that it must be either check, credit card, if cash, it's got to still cash. The state law is that you can't receive more than $100 in cash. So if you receive a $250 cash contribution, that would be impermissible under state law. So, but you would be able to at least keep the $100 as a qualifying contribution. But if a person donated shirts to your campaign of $250 value, you can accept it because it's still a contribution that you're allowed to accept, but it will not be matched and it will not count towards your contributions here. And this is a good transition here, which is what is an eligible contribution. So those were matchable contributions there, from a county resident, in the qualifying period here. An eligible contribution is basically just a contribution of $250 or less from an individual. So you can receive that from an individual from California, from Montana, basically anybody who is eligible to give you money, but it has to be from an individual. Each contribution must have basically a receipt, which I consider is a contribution card next to it. And that's important because it's needed for any of your qualifying contributions. And these are just, you upload them into the system when you file your report. It just basically is an acknowledgement from the contributor that whatever the contribution amount is from their personal funds. They're not being reimbursed for it. It's not from any business account. It is from an individual, and that they attest to that they also attest that they're a member, that they live in the county, and that this is their residential address. All those have to be signed as well. And if a person says, no, I'm not a county resident, that also has to be attested to so that we know that it's not going to be matched. The one is that now there's limits on loans that a candidate can give, or contributions that a candidate can give. It's up to $12,000, and that comprises of the candidate and their immediate family, which is a child, a spouse, a parent, or a sibling there. Those are the combined amount that they can give, up to $12,000, which is separate and distinct. So the idea is that all qualifying contributions are eligible, but not all eligible contributions are qualifying. And that's kind of the key to this. Prohibited contributions, basically it's anything but an individual over $250. This is a big slide for something that can be summed up very simply there. If it's not an individual of $250 or less, it's prohibited. If it's a loan from someone other than the candidate or their immediate household, that is, basically allowed, but it's, it's prohibited. You can't have any anonymous contributions as well. So if a person just randomly gave you $5 on the street, that's just state law too, by the way, just to let you know, no contributions are there. So we can go to the loans here. And we kind of touched on this here about what constitutes basically a candidate loan here, and that the amount for the loan or the contribution amount is not eligible for the matching fund, especially the loan part. So I talked about that they had to have these contribution cards for it here as well. Now, the state and the county have provided samples of this in their summary guide here. That's not necessarily the be all end all for what a contribution card needs to be, but it just needs to have some of the attestation that it has to be signed. It has to mention that there's a resident. It has to have the address, the amount, the name, but the actual receipt and what it is and the format of it is up to the campaign on how to do it. We are happy to review any of them prior to it, because sometimes they try to do it inside your program when you do contributions via credit card on your website. You can always give us a sample for us to approve or not approve, or to help you make sure that it's in compliance. The other part too is that it has to be signed by the contributor. So they can either do it what is considered like a wet signature, where they actually take pen to paper, or it can be done digitally. And digitally here is that it has to be some sort of affirmative action by the contributor on the screen. So sometimes you see things where it's a checkbox. That's not an affirmative action, because people check boxes or say, yes, this is, please constitute my signature. No, it's got to be something where they're typing in their name, where they're actually using their mouse, maybe even signing it. This technology has grown since when I first did this in Montgomery County 4 years ago, that people now are signing things more and more to it on that front there. So that's what it has to be. Additionally, a council check is not a contribution card. Like, these are things that are separate, they're uploaded, and they are and you need to make sure every entry in MD Chris has a contribution card attached to it, because otherwise, if they don't, they will not be matched. This is the little bit about the digital signatures here, and that it is more than a checkbox here. Once again here, these are just some fields that are just basically required on this, mostly addresses, but how you get it is up to you. Like, here, this was what we did 4 years ago in Montgomery County, where it's like, are you a resident? They typed in, initial for your digital signature. That's fine. As you can see, these are fill-in boxes here, rather than just a checkbox. Again, I've worked with campaigns and with the county. If you give us how your method is, we will review it to make sure that it's a part of it, and so that part you can go forth and collect freely without having any issues as to the format of the contribution card or how you obtained your digital signatures. The minimum requirements, again, just a little bit here. It's 500 qualifying contributions or from different contributors, and a total of $40,000 for county exec, and the county council is 125 qualifying contributions for a minimum of $10,000. If you do this, I just want to say, I would recommend always going over, because if you're right at that threshold there, and there's an issue with some sort of your filing, there's a dupe or something to that effect here, that your number count was off or anything like that, you could be it could fall under the threshold amount, And then once you've submitted, you might not be able to qualify correctly there. It's additionally important, like how you, when you're in the system a little bit, making sure that everything is coded properly, because if it's not coded correctly in the system, it's all a program here. It pulls certain data, it pulls it based upon codes. And if it's coded incorrectly, we're going to have a wildly different idea of things here. So, the certification of the candidate. So once, you upload all your receipts for all your qualifying contributions, you've already filed the declaration of intent to, that the establishment, and then you file a campaign finance report, basically seeking certification. We have the schedule a little bit here. There are certain reports that are mandatory. So we ask a question when you have to file certification, which is, are you seeking certification or, into the program? If you say yes, then we're going to look at you and say, this is the report that you're gonna rise and fall on and move forward with. The state board then will certify the candidate in 10 days, or if there's issues, or if the candidate failed to do it, we will notify the candidate as well that they failed to meet the certification there. Once you're certified for the election, you're good for both the primary and the general election. You do not need to be recertified or try to get an additional money or new contributors. Once you're in the program for the full, for both elections. So basically, these slides here are just a little bit, I'll just briefly touch on it. Once again, everything is entered into the MD Chris system here. There's a little bit, if you're familiar with the system, you do data enter the names and addresses of everyone into the system, but you also have to upload all your contribution receipts into the system here as well, and they attach to the report. So it's just something that once you're in it, you just give us a call. We'll walk you through it and help you navigate the first time. Once you figure out the first time, then you're fine. So reporting and distributions here, which is what everyone wants to know about. So these are the mandatory reports. These reports are for every political committee, regardless of whether you're publicly financed. So if right now, if you don't have enough for certification and you're coming up against the annual report in 2022, basically that report, you just say, I am not seeking certification on, right? But you can, or if it's by that time that's the only one. If the other ones here, which was the pre-primaries 1 and 2, those are more for third-party candidates, because they don't necessarily need to seek it so early, because they'll be looking at for the general election. So these are your mandatory reports. Everyone has to file these, regardless of where you are on the schedule. Then you have, for public financing committees, optional reports for them. That's the next slide. So these are basically allowing public financing committees the ability to seek public funds, sooner than those scheduled reports. You can file them on the first or third Tuesday of every month. And the end transaction date is the day before you file. And then the next one, whenever you file again, is from the last filing date. These are optional reports. So if you miss a deadline, for example, the next one coming up is August 17th. And just to say you don't have enough to meet the certification, you just let it go past. That's fine. It's just a window for you to seek funding. And it also just is a trigger for us to know these are the dates to look at, because we have this tight time frame of 10 days to review your filing and and move it back towards getting money to you. So there is no late fees. There is no notice like you would get pre-report notices in other ones there. This is just strictly optional. They just come and they go on your calendar. Once you hit certification, you can file as many times as you want, matching wise. Some of them like wait a few, maybe every third report to build up a little bit more beforehand here. But these are the dates that are there. We also will be putting up a calendar. I believe Diane put up a calendar of all the dates starting from the distribution period in July, which was the first one, all the way through to the past November of 2022. So all these reports have to be filed through MD Chris. They can be filed up until 11:59 on the filing deadline. Basically, only your chair and treasurer will be able to file these reports. If the candidate is is the chair, then they may file the campaign finance report, or they can enter it in data as well. But basically, they can all be there. So here now the best part. So you file the report. You've gone in there. I've reviewed it. Diane reviewed it, and I've now sent them a little bit of a letter saying, hey, they've qualified. But what does that actually mean here? Well, this is how much money you can receive from the county. For county exec, it's $700,000 per election cycle. For county council, it's $85,000 per election cycle. And like Joanne mentioned, it's a tiered approach here, this is kind of like the new, I would say, modern model for public financing, rather than what the presidential or just a straight like dollar for dollar match. So this is kind of trying to really focus and help small dollar people. So when a person says, I can only give you $5, and you're like, no, but that can turn into $35 for me if I'm county exec. So it does kind of add up a little bit there. So for county exec, the first 50 is matched at 7-1. The next 50 is matched at 4-1. The last, then $101 to $150 is matched 1-1. And then the last $50 is just, it's not matched. It's just to help campaigns, I guess, fund themselves. For county council, the match is at 5, 3, and 1, and 0. So it really, the push is those early first $50 from an individual gets matched at an extremely high rate there. So the program itself, there's an incentive then to find as many contributors as possible, because you get the highest match for that first $50. Basically, the receipt submission, this is all the stuff that has to be filed with us. And, once again, it started on June 28th. And so now we're in the distribution period here, and it's all together. Again, this is basically the distribution period here. It's just beginning 365 days before the primary election. And so the whole entire period that you can receive public funds started on June 28th and will now end on November 23rd, 2022. Again, we talked about the max here. It's for county exec, it's $700,000. And for county council, it's $85,000. And then that's given to you as a campaign. So if you maxed out early, you can max out tomorrow. We'll give you the whole $700,000. Then that's up to the campaign as to how it wants to spend the money in the parameters of it. So it can put it all for the primary, it could hold some back, but basically that's the amount of money that is being allocated towards your election. And then there was a reminder too, and I think it's in the miscellaneous part here, so you can continue on, about contested elections. So if A contested election basically means another candidate must be appearing on the ballot against you. So it does not include writing candidates for matching funds. And just because a candidate has said that they are running in that election publicly and maybe raising money and spending money on it, until that candidate files a certificate of candidacy, that is when it is determined as a contested election. So you need to file your certificate of candidacy in order to get any disbursements here. You need to be a filed candidate. Additionally, there has to be filed candidates, meaning that they have come in to the county board of elections, paid the money to appear on the ballot, filed a certificate of candidacy. At worst, the last possible day will be February 22nd, because you know that everyone has to file by then. So, you'll know if you're in a contested election by February 22nd of 2022, if not sooner. Goods and services purchases prior to filing the intent. So this is one of the issues now that always faces new programs, because you have candidates that have existing campaign accounts and that they want to either get rid of those funds or to close out the account, or they want to go into a dormant state. So there is basically, you cannot pre-purchase by using your non-publicly financed account for campaign materials or other items. So for example, you couldn't say, I'm sitting on $1 million campaign right now, and go to a TV station and say, all right, I want to buy, $1 million worth of ads the week before the primary election and the week before the general election, use all this money, then try to seek into the program. That's a prepayment of campaign materials in the election. Now, if you're just putting that fund and just putting it off to the side, then that's fine. You're not prepaying anything, it moves over. This is, if you have specific questions or information about this, I've given you my contact information. Diane has also given her contact information in the chat box there. We'll be happy to review any of that information as well. Again, prohibited uses, you can't use it for personal use or expenses relating to holding office. You can't pay for personal endorsements, and you can't use it for late filing fees. I think these are just kind of like known issues here for what you can do with your finance funds here. I mean, at the end here, the Maryland state law was that campaign funds have to be used for campaign purposes. And this is even more so because now you have public funds being given to you in the program here, that it's strictly being used for campaign purposes, and that everything that you do in this campaign must have a receipt and have a strict nexus between you as a candidate and that expense. I would not have spent this money but for the fact I am a candidate seeking office. That is kind of the nexus. That is kind of the question that we always ask. Would you have done this expense but for the fact that you are a candidate? So that's kind of it on that one. Now, this is also another, I would say, topic that always generates a lot of issues here. A public finance candidate basically is almost like a standalone candidate. Their monies that they raise and spend must come directly out of their campaign account. They cannot make transfers like other political committees to other candidates or other campaign finance entities. This is state law. So this is something that they cannot do. Now, they can appear on literature with other candidates as long as they pay directly to the vendor their share of that piece. So they cannot form a slate with other campaigns. They have to be they're almost like a separate little silo. So of what they want, because at the end of this, you started with zero, you're getting public funds, And then the next slide, I believe, is, we already talked about the slates. Sorry, go through it, which was the surplus, right? I was trying to get to that one there, sorry. Which is basically at the end of all this, if there's any unspent money left in your campaign, it goes back to the Citizens Election Fund. So, basically, the public gives money to the campaign gets to spend it. You spend all your private funds first. Any unspent money goes back to the campaign, which is why, we have to make sure that it is used, and it's used exclusively for that purpose of electing that candidate. And that's what the fund is about. And that's what people gave money for. So, there's my phone number. I had put my email address in the chat box, and happy to now answer any questions that you have for the program.
Thank you so much, Jared. Thank you. Thank you. I know for those who are tuning in, I know that was a lot to take in, but this information is available on the county website, which looks great. I actually just went through it earlier today, and the layout and everything is great. Thank you, Jared. You all know Jared is super busy. He is working with all of the candidates in the state. So we are grateful to you for making time to join us today. Now, before we shift to Q&A, I did want to just flag for folks. I know that this might feel rushed, and again, the information is online, and we'll continue to do presentations like these over the coming months. We're also going to be partnering with Step Up Maryland and towards the end of September, early October, to do somewhat of a boot camp, we'd call it a nonpartisan boot camp for candidates and their staff who are using the program. It is going to be combined for both Howard County and Montgomery County. It'll include tips on how to talk about public financing in the field. And I think for first-time candidates, really how to build a grassroots campaign and the basics of fundraising. So keep an eye out for that information. We'll probably include an overview of this all over again, but I think it could be a good time even for folks in Howard County who maybe want to learn from, some of the campaigning, the strategies that were used in Montgomery County that can be adopted here. I am going to stop sharing my screen. And I think we're going to try and tackle some of these questions collectively. Some of them were already answered during the presentation, but I did want to lift up a few. I saw that Andrea asked, regarding the governor's race, is funding available for other offices, right? And Jared already answered. Right now it is just for the governor outside of jurisdictions that have established programs for their local offices. We are hopefully, in the near future, going to expand these programs to cover offices like the comptroller, AG, and hopefully the General Assembly. But I think those are more long-term efforts, and this is where the momentum at the local level continues to build and help with support at the state level. I am going to try and pull a few. So I'll open this up. So what if only, this is from Larry Carson. Hi, Larry. So what if only a few candidates, opt into the program this time around? I guess, what does that mean for the program in the future?
I guess, is that to me?
Yeah, to anyone, yeah.
It's, I guess, for my purposes, it's why it's voluntary, right? I mean, if 1, 2, if 50, to me, it's a voluntary program, and we'll service it, as many people are in there. Mm-hmm. The rest, I guess, that's for someone else.
Yeah. And I would just say, again, this is where we know that there might be some people who are, looking at the Citizens Election Fund right now and who are interested but want to see it used for the first time. So I do think, after this election cycle, and as more residents in the county become more familiar with it, we will begin to see over time more people opting in. I don't think it's fair to compare Howard County to Montgomery County, two very different jurisdictions. And Montgomery County at the time also had, I want to say 4 at-large seats. So it was different. But again, it all depends on how many people are opting into these races. So just a few really doesn't hurt the program. To Jared's point, it is optional. It's available to those who want to use it. But I think over time, we will begin to see more people using it. And I see some questions coming up in the chat, but if you want to include it in the Q&A, that might make it easier. So this is more general, and we've kind of addressed this, but what happens to money given to candidates before they announce, file, opt in to the program, including money that would have been permitted to accept as money they would have been permitted to accept when using the program? And I know, Jared, you already answered it, but I guess it's more of a what happens, to candidates who already have funds, who already have campaign committees with funding in it. What happens to that funding?
Well, right now, I mean, whatever, if they have an account and then they want to go into it, then it would just be frozen. And then they would have to either close it or, but it cannot be, you can't have both a publicly financed account that's active and a non-publicly financed account that's active. So they would just be like, it would be in a dormant state during this time period.
Yep. And this is from Julio. The public financing, the program summary guide mentions that donors answering questions isn't just checking a box. A couple of candidates have check boxes. Are check boxes okay? And I want to say you touched on this.
Yeah, I mean, check boxes are not, you can check box saying I am a county resident. This is my address and that I affirm this. But a checkbox cannot be used for a signature. And that's what it was like. You can't be like, do you agree to this? And, this by checking this box constitutes your acceptance and signature. No, that would not be acceptable.
And some of these are repetitive, but again, to Larry, if a candidate wants to use the program, but they have a few $1,000s left over from a past campaign, this is the case where, Jared has said, that account would be frozen and those funds they can't use it after they've opted into the program. Okay, so what happens if a candidate, after registering or opting into the program, leaves thousands of dollars in his prior? So a lot of questions regarding what happens, and it makes sense because it's the first time using the program, but again, these funds the accounts are frozen, including refund. Yeah. So apologies, you all, if it feels like we're skipping them, I'm not. I'm trying to kind of skip things that are too repetitive, and then we have some really long ones. So how would I go about filing a complaint to the Citizens Election Fund and State Board of Elections if I feel a candidate has accepted impermissible disqualifying contributions during the qualifying period? So what steps, and what are potential consequences there?
Well, I mean, you would just file a written complaint to myself or Diane, and with whatever I would say supporting documents or evidence that you have backing up your claim, because with it, or whatever reasonable suspicion that you have, as much behind it, and then it will be reviewed by us, and then the consequences can range from being, I would say, kicked out of the program all the way through to being referred to the state prosecutor's office. I mean, that's like any sort of complaint from any sort of political committee, right? I mean, I get complaints, and this is just in general, right? I get complaints all the time against campaigns, whether they forgot like an authority line on their campaign material there. That's a complaint, and it basically can range from a civil penalty, or it can get all the way referred to the state prosecutor and then go to court for these matters as well.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's just basically the same sort of process.
Yep. And we've got a good question here from Ben. So what if a contributor makes an error? This would be on the contribution card. They don't check off that they don't check off the resident box, or say two people sign for a contribution on a joint account. How do you cure that in advance?
Well, I guess one, if a contributor doesn't check off that a resident, but they still sign it, and it's a Howard County residential address that they've put in there, that's fine. I would say that, but if they don't sign it, then you have to go back to that individual for a signature. Like, the signature part is the key to that. And you can cure by also going back to make sure that that is person residential address and that they are a person that lives there.
Mhm.
The second question, which was, what was it?
I just missed it.
I just was, yeah. Oh, about a joint account. So you can't have a contribution on a joint account. And this is forced under state law as well. Every contribution has to be coming from an individual. Now, I might have a joint account with my spouse, but it's the contribution is from me on that, and that you can only enter in one name in the field, and you can only accept one name. If they both attend, say, a fundraising event, then you can, make sure that you get two contribution cards from them. They both have to sign the contribution cards. They both have to move forward with it, but you never enter it in as like Mr. and Mrs. John Smith in the system. It won't accept that. It would have to be John Smith, $25, Jane Smith, $25. And that's in the summary guide for at the state board for just campaigns as well, just to let you know.
Thank you. And I'm seeing a lot of anonymous. So I just want to make sure we're gonna answer questions, but just keeping that in mind, I want to be mindful that this event was shared with press, and obviously press, I don't imagine, is doing anonymous, but if you have a question, we'd like to see who it's coming from, just because it helps as we're taking questions or answering questions. So Todd Williams, this is more general, can candidates take part in not just Dem, but the local political party campaign events?
So campaigns, they're standalone events, right? If it's a rally and everyone's invited to it and the public's invited to it, the candidate can appear. The candidate, they can't receive or make monetary contributions to and from the central committees. So if they have to pay to enter into this event, then no, because that's considered a transfer into that account. But if it's a rally and everyone's speaking, they can go up there and speak, or especially attend, like, say, a county fair or anything to that effect, then, they can be there. But basically, campaigns are to be their own entities. That's, they're getting public funds for that purpose. Okay.
And I'm seeing a few other questions regarding coordination with the party and, hold on. Can you talk about the parameters permissible with coordination with non-participating and participating candidates showing up at events? So this still seems like coordination with the party. Yeah, so can a non-participating candidate make a personal contribution out of their own pocket so this is still around coordination. I think some of these questions, it might be, unless, it might be, because Jared kind of gave an answer, it might be where you are sending a message directly to Diane and Jared. I think this is where we're kind of stringing the lines between providing legal advice, which we don't want to do, right? We want to be careful not to provide information to candidates that may, be wrong as they're working in the field. So I'd say Ben and others who are asking regarding coordination, I guess Diane and Jared, if you're able to put your emails in the chat again, please reach out, and then please feel free to reach out to me directly as well, and I can try to assist. Yeah, because I think these are similar questions that have come up in other, in Montgomery County as well. I would say, just as unofficial advice too, I would say, again, a county has used it and they are using it again. So I would reach out to the local parties in that jurisdiction to figure out how, they were still able to ensure that candidates who were running as Dems or Republicans, that they still, were visibly, party, they were still visibly aligned with the party without it being actual coordination. I want to say we've kind of touched on pretty much everything. I know that a lot of the questions that are coming up are regarding, funding that was in accounts before, and this is where these type of questions, I think if it's specific to a candidate, the best step here would be to contact the State Board of Elections directly. And obviously making sure you're letting Diane know as well. I'm trying to make sure I don't miss, we've got really long ones, but I think for the most part, and I hope, for those who are here with the party, again, we're trying to be helpful, but I want to make sure we're not providing incorrect information, especially to members of the public. But, I would say, candidates are not in a disadvantage, and this isn't anything new. This is how the other jurisdictions programs are set up. And again, the intent here is that the candidates are running off of the strength of dollars that are coming from residents in the county. That does not mean that you as an individual who is a party leader, and a resident of the county, that you can't make a contribution to that candidate as an individual. But again, I'm seeing a lot of, yeah. So, this is part of the learning curve. And I think one thing that is key to remember with all these programs is that our work is never over, right? So we are always coming back and making fixes. That was the case in Montgomery County. And this time around, once the election cycle is over, I'm sure that we will be making improvements to the program as well. So I think that is where you as the public, if there are things that are coming up that you think need to be addressed, please document them, please share it with us, please share it with the commissioners so that we can get to them later on. And would you release further guidance about what is and is not legal? This is where, Jared, I can check.
I think at one point here, just to let you know, we do work with Diane and Sue, and we do have the frequently asked questions part there. So as things come up, right, we try to make sure that it gets in that so that other candidates can know what the decisions were based upon like certain questions that come up.
Yeah. And then I do see a comment from Joel. Again, I can't speak to the party and whether or not they are gaming the system. I will say that a lot of these same questions came up in Montgomery County. The candidates that we at least, we're kind of keeping track of, the candidates did their best in adhering to the rules of the program and not directly coordinating with the party. And, as a resident here in MoCo, I saw, I saw all of their material. They participated in advance, and really, I don't feel as though they were at a disadvantage. But again, we can't speak directly to what is happening here in MoCo. This is where I think the parties as well, needs to seek legal advice. And, as we're working on making amendments, I think this is where you as party leaders making sure that you are engaged in that process, helping us to work on building the best program that works for Howard County. But for now, yeah. And I'm sorry, I know that is not satisfying to everyone, but it is hard to answer really specific questions like these. But for those who have concerns, there are processes in place for moving forward with making complaints, if that makes sense. And as for loopholes, I know we've heard a lot about loopholes in the Citizens Election Fund. Unfortunately, our entire campaign finance system has loopholes. I would argue, the Citizens Election Fund actually has a lot more parameters in place. But when we're looking at traditional ways of running, even when we look at possibly LLC contributions that are coming in, a lot of times if you were to follow the money, you would see that these are LLCs that probably were created just to make donations and so forth. So I want to make sure for others who are tuning in, I hope that those questions do not discourage you. As a resident of Montgomery County, someone who got to see the program used for the first time, I will say, and taking off my Common Cause hat as best as I can, we saw just a shift in the way that the candidates were, building out their field efforts, right? They were talking to voters who a lot of times aren't engaged until the peak of GOTV, right? Going into areas that were largely ignored. And, when you look at a place like Montgomery County, we have some of the most ethnically diverse, communities here in the county. And we saw candidates doing everything from, having lit in different languages and more. So I say all that to say that the program, works. It does build people power, not just when a person understands how far their dollar goes, that person is more likely to not only vote, but volunteer on that campaign and stay engaged even once that person is in office. So I'd encourage you all to just, give the program a chance. And again, track things that you think need to be improved so that we can address them later on. So I will pause there. I don't know if our speakers just have any final remarks before we wrap up.
I would just like to say one thing. In talking to people in Montgomery County, I think I talked to like 7 people in the council and the county exec's office who all use the fund, and they all told me when they run again, they were going to use the fund again. Mm-hmm. There were some things that, they wanted to see changed. I don't know if, all of them were rectified, or if there were still things that they're unhappy with. But I was very impressed, and they all admitted that it's extra work, but they believed in the system, they believed in public financing, and they're planning on using it again. So I think that's the biggest endorsement that you can get.
Yep. And we're seeing a lot more candidates, first-time candidates opting in as well. And the event that we're going to be hosting at the end of September will also include a member of the council who is not running again, who was termed out, who used the program, who can talk about her experience as well. So I think maybe that might be helpful to folks, especially in HOCO.
And just to add one reminder, on the Howard County Citizens Election Fund website, we've already referenced a few times that there is a ton of really helpful materials. There is also a video that was just recently published. It is basically the exact presentation that Jared went into. There are some additional details, especially if you're a candidate or prospective candidate, where you can really drill in and see how to attach a receipt and things like that. It is recorded, and there's hyperlinks built in, so you don't have to listen through the whole thing. You can kind of skip around. So definitely encourage you to use the website, check it often. It will continue to be updated as more questions come in and so on and so forth.
Thank you so much, everyone. If you registered, we'll be sending the recording to you likely tomorrow in case you just want to tune in again or share it with others. But thank you so much. Details about upcoming events will be shared, and Montgomery County will be hosting a session as well in mid-September. I'll share that date with Diane and Sue in case others are interested in just tuning in. But it'll be fairly similar to this, just with their their county staffers. But thank you so much.
Thank you.